Welcome everyone to Two Pagans in a podcast. This would be our second episode, although we're not really doing the whole number thing. I only brought it up because last episode we did Modern Norse Journey, but then Beard here made the Two Pagans in a Pod comment, and we decided that's too good. We can't run with that. So here we are. Thanks to Beard. Anyways, I am your host, Fro Double G, and joining me is my co-host, Beard.
Beard! Yeah,
Uh,
occasionally I have good ideas. Occasionally.
Yeah, it happens. It happens to the worst of us,
Right?
So today we figured, we'd kind of start somewhere where a lot of people kind of start off when they get into paganism at all. Who do I worship? What gods do I worship? How do I know who to worship? What's on the bottom of Beard's cup? Everyone, these are questions we all have.
I don't know. There's something felt weird on the bottom of my cup, and I was like, there's nothing there. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Sorry for those who only listen to the audio. Beard picked up his cup and started fidgeting. So, we are real quickly going to touch on who's in our Hearth cult and what is a Hearth cult. So, just to keep it real short and sweet, a Hearth cult is literally just the gods you worship at home. Your personal gods that you worship. You got your hearth, your home. And then I know the word cult has a lot of negative meaning behind it. It used to just kind of, if I remember correctly, was just like a collection of people who worship something. Long ago, now it's definitely got the more modern context with it. But the Hearth cult that's what it is. So I'm actually going to lead this time instead of Beard because my start probably has a little more to it as far as talking points. So I came from a very atheistic background, as I had mentioned previously. But I've always enjoyed theological, philosophical debates and things like that. So when I had my first, what I believe undeniable spiritual experience, I started hitting some of the philosophy on this. Like, hold up, okay, let's see if there's anything to it, because I knew it wasn't a Christian thing. So I'm like, hold up, right? And I was pretty dead set that oh no, that was an Odin thing. So one of the things I'd seen essentially said to try to basically base your Hearth cult around your life, right? Or a lot of people used to base theirs around their life. So I figured that's what I would do. So to start off with, my very initial right out the gate, although the only spiritual experience I had with any of them was Odin, my Hearth cult consisted of Odin for the wisdom, seeking wisdom, knowledge, wandering, things like that. Thor, simply because I'm a parent. I got that kind of protective nature. And just kind of I've always stood up when I see some fucked up shit. I'll stand up for people. Frigg, I'm a parent again. I'm married, so she's the goddess of marriage and things like that, parenting. Then we had Bragi, because I'm a content creator. Brought this up last episode. I like to make content, and I'm like, hey, he's like the poet, right? God of poetry. We'll loop back to this one, or that one. And then Sif, which she was commonly known as a goddess of the home, and I have a home here for a family. So a lot of mine revolve around my family. The fuck do you know? I got 3 kids. Imagine that. But those really are just kind of where I started off with. Beard, how did you start off with?
Well, bro. So, for me, for those who listened to the last, our initial episode S, I started out in a time where there wasn't much information. Which, I mean, granted, there was a lot more information than people who started out 30 years ago or longer. But I mean, for me, I mean, a lot of the initial first stories that I was reading and reading kind of the Norse myths and things like that. A lot of the stuff that I was finding was really centered around Odin. Um, and being that even at a young age, I was always curious to learn and just kind of gather wisdom and knowledge. That really spoke to me because especially one of the very first stories that I read and was getting into everything with was how gave his eye um to the well, and I was like, okay, well that that kind of speaks to me, and um kind of just what I stuck with, and for the longest time, uh, that was my Hearth cult. I mean, you can say he was my patron. You can say maybe I was monotheist to some extent, with kind of just worshiping him at the start. Um, I mean, not that I didn't occasionally thank the other gods or say a little something here and there for the other gods, but a lot of my attention was solely on Odin, and it was because of me being in this stage of I need to learn more, I need to gather more wisdom, and being a young stupid teenager, the struggles of life, the struggles of growing up, the struggles of transitioning from high school and into the workforce, and throughout different things in my life ever since. So um there's always been some struggle or another at some point in my life, whether it be a
That's
positive
fair.
struggle or a negative struggle.
And
So
and this is why some people will actually be a bit hesitant to work with Odin, but excuse me. There's been a decent amount of attestation of it, like he's a bit of a struggle. Like working with him can be a bit of a struggle. Like he'll work with you during times of struggle. Like it's not necessarily just like a. Well, I don't want to use the like break you down and build you back up, right? Because that's got almost a little bit too much of the whole pull yourself up from your bootstraps kind of thing. Which, by the way, is supposed to be a joke. That's a physical impossible thing to do, and that's what the writer, when he said that, originally meant. Anyways, um, so it, I do. He's definitely someone to work with if you're looking to confront problems and struggles, not looking to avoid or go around a lot of them, or not necessarily dodge them. Maybe go around, but not a dodge. Like it's definitely and from what I've heard from a lot of other people, and a bit of what I've worked, personally.
yeah, I would agree with that. I would also throw in to the whole like learning from the struggle
Right.
and
Yes. Yeah. That's a good aspect. I forgot.
and taking in. I mean, because I mean that's the difference between like Odin with wisdom and Mimir, who I'll talk about a little bit later, because that's where you get into the difference of. And I always like the way that D&D explains it, whereas like you have wisdom and then you have intelligence, and the difference between the two is that wisdom is things that you experience and that you've learned through experiencing the world around you, whereas intelligence is what you've learned through education, through a book, through something like that, and that's the main difference between the two. Um, so when you look at struggle for Odin and learning from it, it's the wisdom that you learn from struggling, the experience that you take out of it. So
Find it all very agreeable. So yeah, just the long and short of it. I hit it with approaching numerous. Just basically what I felt like may have already been heavily involved in my life, and Beard kind of went with more with the single god focused, without no denial of others. Um, but you've been on your trip for a bit. So why don't you
This is
go
fair.
ahead and tell us whereabouts you're at this point now? Because I know you definitely aren't just. I don't want to say Odinist, but in a patron of a solo patron of.
To start with, yeah. I mean, it would be fair. I mean, if you're looking at to use the term Odinist in like the fact that he is my patron,
Yeah, there's just so context to it.
that
There's just so
that
context. It's not like
yeah,
saying
and
Asatru
that's
where you could really say that look, here's a group that isn't and here's a group that is, right? So a
and
lot of times with Odinist, I have not been pointed to an example of it not being some sort of focused or, you know, white supremacist window dressing with pagan shit. Like
right.
I that particular, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Feel free to show me an example where I'm wrong. I although even in this situation, I don't think just one's gonna save me on this.
Right.
But I
I
mean,
mean,
if a trend continues, and you know, I'm not opposed to reclaiming certain things. Although this one, I'm not really looking to necessarily rally behind. But it is Odin's name, so it's not like something I just want to be like, no, go ahead, racist. Like, you know,
right. I mean, it's in the sense of like you would have to, you know, like in my case, if I wanted to describe myself as an Odinist, I'd have to define it thereafter. Uh, you know, it wouldn't just be a term. I'd have to just, oh, I'm gonna throw this out there because yeah, like you said, the context and you know the known groups behind it. Um, so I gotta stop smacking my lips. You yelled at me for that last time, so I
at the
apologize because I
start of
keep
your
smacking my lips
sentences,
again.
at the start of your sentences.
It's the start of my sentences. No more smacking of the lips. No more. So
Don't worry. Once you get a
with
better microphone and get that voice meter set up, you can do the opposite of the gate. I forget what it's called, but it's like basically a cap, and it won't let you your let's go through it all
ah,
because it'll be too loud.
I
Or
will
you'll just
certainly.
have a nice enough mic where, like,
This is
you
also
become a
fair.
lot more notable of it, and
Uh,
we can like distinguish
I want
better.
one of
Anyways,
those really nice ones. I can get the voice cover thingy on it, whatever those things are. The filter. I don't know what it's called. I'm
pop
old.
filter. It's a pop filter.
Yes, pop
You know what
filter.
those are
That's
actually for?
no idea.
When you make a P, there's a thing called a P pop. If you put your hand right in front of your mouth and do say the word pop, you will feel no, literally like basically put your hand on your
Oh,
nose and you say pop.
yeah.
You can
Huh.
feel like a little poof of air on your hand.
Hmm.
That filter gives it something for the air to dispense or disperse across, so it doesn't actually hit the mic. Um, yeah, but
Huh.
that's what that's for. It helps cut down on those because that will hit the mic and like it'll like spike up, but it does
I,
like a pop. That's why it's a P pop,
oh,
specifically when
huh.
you do the letter P.
Huh.
And actually, no, I know this has nothing to do with any of this, but a little thing that voice actors will do to get around that is take a pencil or their finger, but I'll use a pencil here as a good thing, and they'll put it right here. So when you go to do the P pop, it kind of does the same thing where it disperses it a little bit, but you got to be a little more. Obviously, who wants to talk with a fucking pencil in their face? But total
Right.
side tangent. I'm sorry I
Hmm.
got us way off there.
Oh no, that's
So
that's. I think it's useful, clever information, and I have learned something new finally today. Which
yeah, I
uh,
don't think I'm like super smart. I mean, granted, I always have been doing podcasts and shit where like I'm kind of keyed in to listen a little bit more to like audio related shit, but and I've tried to do some loose voice acting, voiceover stuff, so I'm interested. But there's a show called I Know That Voice that was on Netflix for a while. It's like an hour and a half documentary all about voice actors. They do cover that in there, and that's specifically where I learned that from. But it's an amazing documentary, and I highly suggest checking it out just in general because it just basically there's a shit ton of different voice actors, and it's crazy watching voice actors like talking about each other, impersonating each other's voices of different characters. Like, have you ever heard the dude who does Bender try to sound like not Winnie the Pooh, Tigger or Porky Pig, and it's just shit like that, right? Like, because they'll be talking about, oh, his Porky's so good, and then he'll like, it's great, it's great.
I'll
Highly,
have to check
highly
it out.
suggest.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
I know that
I
voice.
know that voice.
I know
Okay.
that voice.
I don't have anything to write on at the moment, so I'll have to. Here, I'll just type it to myself. That's what I should do. What my sticky
No,
note?
don't,
I used to have a
don't,
sticky note.
don't type.
Anyway,
It'll pick it up on the fucking. That's what started this whole tangent.
yes.
Your
Okay.
mic will pick it up. Mic etiquette. Let's knock it off.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. So, my Hearth cult today. That's stupid smacking lips. Sorry. So now, I mean, it's for me, it's broadened now. It's no longer just Odin, and for me, it was a gradual change. Again, mainly kind of going off of the whole, I started somewhere and I started small and I started with one and have worked my way into what has just felt natural for the most part. Uh, so like, of course, I still have Odin for the same things: wisdom, learning, struggle. I have since added Thor. I I don't want to say it was kind of like a cop out choice, but I'm very defensive of others. I'm very protective of people, especially those close to me. Um, and I've always had a willingness to help other people. So
Yeah, I feel like
it
Thor is one of the ones where it's like it's almost odd when people don't have Thor in their Hearth cult. Not even necessarily
right,
that it's like because you have to. It's just most people do have the urge either to want to feel protection or protect others, right? And that's just generally seen as Thor. So
right,
I don't think it's a cop out at all. I mean, come on, wearing his hammer. Fucking how many of us wear his hammer? Like
right.
that alone causes many modern pagans probably causes many modern pagans to at least give the most minimal appreciation, respect, or look into with Thor. So I don't think it's a cop out by any means.
That's fair. Yeah, mine's sitting on my. I'd be wearing mine, but mine's sitting there. I actually think we have the same one, bro. To be honest,
For now,
is it? It's a
I might
side
be getting a
tangent,
new
but
one. I'm pretty excited.
Is it?
I did
Mine
buy
looks
some for my
awfully
family
close to
too.
yours.
Uh,
Uh,
I shared it in the Discord, so you've seen it. My wife's got this
oh,
real. I forget what it's called. You can literally just search. I think it's either small or dainty Mjolnir. The thing's like the size of a dime. She loves it,
wow.
and it's great. It's real small. It's not huge and heavy like this. Like real
Right.
small. My daughter's got one. It's about the size of a quarter, but it's very thin. It lays flat. Um, it's got a nice little design on that as well. Like I'm happy with both. They both were Etsy buys, and I'm like, I'm really iffy on Etsy stuff, right? Because it can be shit.
Right.
And B, I'd really like to support like more actual like pagan people. I know this was Chinese bought, but that, my wife got it for me, and it was literally like when I was first getting into it. Now I'm like, okay, I love this, right? And I don't think there's anything wrong with this. I just would like to support another pagan. I guess let me reword that whole thing. There's nothing wrong with getting one from anywhere else. I just would like to support an actual pagan, right?
Oh yeah, and that
Uh,
totally makes sense. And the one that I have that looks really similar to yours is my wife bought it for me from Amazon, so it's probably some Chinese made one as well.
exactly.
I
That's
wouldn't be
where mine
surprised.
came from, and I have no problem with it. I love mine. I do love mine. Right? It's been like a year now, and it's been almost every fucking day that I can remember. I have forgotten here or there. I wear this thing. Love it. Um, but
Yeah,
anyways,
I won't leave my house without it on.
I mean, I've done it.
But
What
that's
do you do? Halfway to work when you? Oh shit! Well, I'm not gonna
right.
turn around and drive 20 minutes to get it.
I think there was one time I forgot I didn't put it on before I left. Of course, I didn't put on any of my rings or anything that day, and I felt just so weird all day. It was like I don't feel like I'm dressed because I didn't have it on. But so continuing back on track.
Yep. Back on track.
Oh wow, we don't even have any of that written in the show notes, and we're probably way off tangent
I
more than
know
we
it's
were
it's
last time.
me the fucking getting us way off on tangents and shit.
But
That's
they're
right.
all good
You tangent
tangents.
in your story. I just take us fucking off rail.
But it's useful. It's pertinent information almost every time. Almost every
I don't think P-pops were very pertinent, but let's continue.
time. So so next in my herd cult would be Mimir, the talking head of the Norse pantheon, quite literally. Uh, just because I mean a lot of the things associated with him again are kind of the desire to learn, learning, um, just intelligence in general are a lot of the things that are associated with Mimir. Being that he supposedly knows everything, supposedly. Um, so that's kind of where
Which
he comes in.
we heavily do need to talk, not this episode, another episode, on the tri-omni, quad-omni traits.
Yeah,
We really do.
that will that will be a good
Because,
episode.
and I'll briefly say it just because you brought it up. Most pagans see no problem with a god either having one or maybe two. It's when you start picking up three when it's like, hold up, I have some fucking questions. But anyways,
And it's fair. Mimir is one of those ones that just kind of, yeah, there's a lot of things with Mimir. So I just try to keep it focused on just that aspect of, the learning and things like that with him and try to not dive too much deeper into there. But next up, of course, then comes Freya, which for me is like associated with home and specifically my son. Uh, to I mean, this could be for like an actual UPG episode to go in more depth, but essentially the set of runes that I had originally, um, the day my son was born, I did um, a quick little just thing with the runes, and the rune that I pulled was the one of the runes that's mainly associated with Freya, and shortly thereafter, several of my runes broke after that. Like literally within that same like moment. Um, so Freya being kind of like a like a wife, patron, of fertility and things like that. Um, are all things associated with her, and that's kind of why I kind of extend that for just kind of a home broad spectrum for her, for me, and then of course that that experience with my runes and pulling that rune, um, specifically for my son, and that just kind of I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't know. It just felt like there was something there for that.
I mean, if
Um,
it's your own experience, own UPG, it's fair, man.
right. Um,
Until you tell
so
me it has to be mine. And that's the key, isn't it? That's always the
yeah.
key.
And then next up, these two go together. Um, it's hard to. Oh, okay, but you didn't need to come over and tell me that. Okay. Okay, Keshi, I'm trying to record it. I don't know where your backpack is. Maybe find it. So the next two are for me are connected. And I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this that doesn't sound morbid, but
That's
it's
all right
probably going to
because
sound
it'll
it's
be a
it's
springboard right into mine anyway. So
right. So the next two are the goddess Hell and the dragon that chews on the roots of Yggdrasil Nidhogg or Nidhogg, or I'm probably saying that wrong, but um or I think maybe it's like Nidhogg, something like that. Um
surprise, we're both Americans. We have
right.
very heavily Midwestern, northern
Right.
Midwestern accents.
Um so these two are both connected to, or the connection and reason that they're in my Hearth cult is I have had a lot of death happen near me in my life, friends, family, things just happening nearby. Um, and it's just, I don't know, there's just this underlying, like, even though being a mortal human being, the fear of dying is a thing for me, especially now being a parent. And the older my kids get, the more terrifying I feel like it becomes. Um, but for just the two of them, just because I've had all of these ever since I was little, just it would be one great grandparent or that great grandparent. Like, we were going to funerals. It felt like all the time, and then we stopped going to funerals because just people just kept dying in my family. And then then I started to get into about middle school, and then you got to that age where it's like you start kind of realizing people and you start having connections with people in middle school. Um, if it wasn't a teacher, it was a kid in my class. And if it wasn't a kid in my class, it was a kid that I knew. Um, it was either like an accident or, they came down with cancer or just, again, I'm trying not to make this sound morbid, but I mean, it's just that has literally been the trend since I've been little. Um, so as I got older and I got it more into this and came down this path, and fortunately people that I knew continued dying. um but I just the weird thing is, and again probably another UPG thing, uh, there's almost like a, for me, like, uh, I don't want to say it's like I know it before it happens, but I get that sense of like she's there, or she's whispering to me, or like, I don't know how to
A
explain it
foreboding
without
in
it.
a way.
Yeah, like a foreboding in a way, and it's never about me. Like, it's always like the foreboding is there, but I'm calm. Like, I'm being made to be calm. I mean, like, the comfort is there almost, but without it being comfort, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like, this is about to happen, but you're gonna be okay. And I don't know, like, and it's kind of been like one of those things too. It's like, and not every time. I mean, there's been a few times that I've lost someone in my life where it has hit me hard, harder than others, and things like that. And someone's kind of been there for me. But for the most part, I tend to be the person that's there for everybody else. Um, who's keeping my calm, who's being, when everybody else is being, oh, Keshi, can you not do this to me tonight, Keshi? Ay, 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 I'm so sorry. Um, so there's always been, yeah, like I said, I've kind of been the person to comfort others in those times, and aside from the few times where it's hit me harder than everybody else, and it's always kind of, like I said, kind of a UPG kind of thing, where it's just I feel like before it happens, or as I'm about to find out that it's happened, there's always that kind of just that feeling in the back of your mind, or that presence that I've kind of felt, and it's like my phone's gonna ring right now, and I'm gonna get told somebody's gone, um, or someone's gonna walk through that door and give me some bad news or something. So
Hmm. Hmm.
um, that's why I've always had the connection to, um, and especially with Nidhogg being like this dragon of death. I mean, there's some stuff out there about him, or about the dragon, um, but at the same time, there's also not a lot of information about him. So, but no, no, there's always seems to be this connection. And for the longest time, I wore actually a dragon amulet, and it was a dragon that was chewing on. I don't know if it was specifically made as a Norse pagan amulet, but it was a dragon chewing on the roots of a tree. And I wore that pendant for the longest time until it literally snapped off one day and I lost it. But before I kick it off to you, Fro, I'm getting pestered by my child one more time, who I've told 3 times now not to. You need to keep your eraser home. Then do keep it home, but do not come over here until I give you the okay. All right? So, with that, Fro, on that morbid kickstand or springboard for you, it is now your turn to kick
Uh,
us off with where you're at currently.
so the reason I was saying that was a springboard to me is because I've added to mine, uh, especially one that I had a spiritual experience with. This one I am. It is my strongest and my most definite spiritual experience with Lady Hell. Um, so I've added her because I've also had a decent amount of experience with death, um, especially being young. Like my parents were a little bit older when they had me, um, which means which means their parents were already up there. I didn't have any grandparents by the time I was 30. I was down to just one by the time I was like 25. And half of them were gone before I was an adult. That's just how it was for me. Plus the experience I had was from my very first day where I'm like, hey, feeling really sad, talking about all my grandparents and my dad type thing. So I ended up adding her. I have also added Freya because I have started to play around a bit with magic and runes and some divination, and she's often heavily associated with that, along with Odin. I have added Loki. Now, and I know for a lot of people that can be controversial, but for me, it's a lot of the mischief, right? Because a lot of his stories, a lot of them are more mischievous than they are necessarily evil, per se. And even a lot of those could be argued what's influenced, what's biased, what's been changed. But a lot of times, a lot of it's mischievous. Kids are mischievous, man. Like, pranks can be mischievous, pranks can go wrong. A harmless prank can turn into not be harmless. What you thought could be innocent can hurt someone's feelings. There are things like that. It happens. Misunderstandings. A lot of little things in life that just don't go the way they should. Especially with regards to human interaction. So I've added Loki. And again, a lot of it has to do with a little bit of childish little kids. They do some little Loki-esque things at times, it seems like. But there's also things in this world that don't have that human element, that just go wrong, that just don't work. 1,000 people can try to make it work, but it just is not fucking working for who knows why. Shit goes wrong. It should go right, but it goes wrong. So I added Discordia as well. Now, a lot of that also has to do with the Greek concept of Discord and the creation clicks with me pretty well. I really like how it sounds, how it feels when I mull it around in my head. But I think it is a little bit one of those things where it's like the only thing you can guarantee is shit's gonna go wrong sometimes. Um, so I do have Discordia. I don't necessarily worship her. It's just sometimes when the 1,000 things go wrong, but you find a moment of peace as everything burns around you. Yeah, I appreciate you. Or sometimes you ride the wave, right? I don't know. I don't necessarily. It's more of a respect. I kind of treat her almost like how a lot of other people probably see Loki, and that's also kind of how I treat Loki. I never really necessarily gave direct offerings to either. Um, and then I've also incorporated a lot more of the home spirits, the land spirits. Um, but you can relate because you're also in this area. The water spirits, because there's fucking bodies of water everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of people, like, it doesn't have to be the biggest body of water. Like, if you have a creek, there may be a spirit there, right? Who knows? Um, so yeah, that would be the majority of mine. Uh, Notably, I did. Oh, I forgot to bring this up with Freya. Also, I like cats. Cats like me. She's associated with cats. I very much so feel like my Philia is a cat. Probably. I don't know. And also with Loki, I forgot to mention, I'm severely ADHD. In case you guys haven't fucking figured this out at all. Um, and I don't know if maybe he might toy around a little bit with the neurodivergent people, but boy, if he did, it would be a Loki thing to do, wouldn't it?
Just it'd be a little low key, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a little low key, low key. Now, there is one god I actually have removed from my Hearth cult. Not because I have taken a hard stance against. It's actually come from me learning more about, and that was Bragi. Um, I don't feel like Bragi has much to do with actually affecting my life personally. Um, Freya and Odin also are heavily involved with art and poetry. And it could be seen and argued, and it's more my interpretation, that they are much more into the more free form, unscripted, not as highly planned, choreographed as maybe a Bragi, right? Because he was a great skaldic poet. That shit takes work. Those lines, the kennings have to be on point. The lines got to be on point. Like, it's not there's not many free form poetries out there, right? I know free form fucking poetry is a thing. That's why I just said it. But not many of them, right? Like a haiku has to be this type thing. I don't know the exact what makes it a skaldic poet, right? So I couldn't give you. I could be slightly talking out of my ass, but generally, poetry and things have to be constructed and things like that. I'm severely ADHD, semi-autistic. I don't do well with that, right? It's not my shtick. I'm much more of the, like, I rant, I ramble, I freeform, I speak, I fucking pour it out from my heart. I'm not sitting here constructing the world's most precise sentence or fucking argument. Half you people think I'm probably stupid and rambly. Like, that's just how it is. So I feel like I respect, but I would rather be taking that time or any prayer and putting it maybe towards Freya or Odin to get more wisdom or guidance through that. Um, Now I say all this against Bragi, but I did pray to him once, and then my dumbass wrote a fucking poem like within a day, and I think it's a semi decent poem. I can put it down in the description, but so maybe I am talking out my ass. Who
No,
knows? Because how many poems I've wrote this year? One after praying to Bragi, and I got a bit hair up my ass to actually write a poem. So I could be fucking wrong, and maybe I should be looking at that some more. That's kind of where this path is for most of us. It's you got what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Now that I'm saying it out loud and actually like on recording and stuff, and like can see my face as I'm saying this story, I'm kind of thinking like, wow, I probably should go back and maybe do another Pertobragi and see what's there, especially since I've been wanting to do some more writing. Not Bright Beard knows this. We won't go into any detail or anything, but he knows I've been wanting to do some writing. I've been struggling to do some writing. Maybe this is what I need. Who the fuck knows?
I mean, short of slapping you in the face, what else do you want?
I mean,
apparently
that's what it's going to take. Apparently that's what it's going to take.
Well, go tell your wife that she has to go smack you across the face then, and see if that gets it. And there goes my English for the day.
Now, we both did talk a little before this about if we're currently looking to add any gods to our Hearth cult, and neither of us really are, outside from just what we had basically kind of already been talking about. Maybe I feel called out, like maybe it wasn't in the fucking script, but maybe now Bragi might be coming back, right, for me personally. But besides that, there is no real plan for me to be looking to work with, pray towards, try to have an experience with, whatever you want to call it. Neither really is Beard, so we didn't necessarily want to touch on that too terribly much, as this is kind of more our necessarily journeys to share with you guys. But there was one thing I wanted to know, and this is, again, because both of us come from atheistic backgrounds, which is usually a bit of an oddball in the theological debate, or I guess not in the theological, in the pagan space. It seems like a lot of people I know weren't atheists first. They were at least like heavily skeptic agnostic, or they were Christians before. And I was like, no, we were atheists, like no gods. But yeah, so how was it for you to slowly start adding? Because it was a much slower process for you, whereas I just kind of like shotgunned it and like, let's see what sticks here.
Right. For me, again, being that I've been on this path, journey, experience, evolution, however you want to refer to it as, at the end of the day, I'm, for the better part of 15 years. So, I mean, I have to really sit and think about it to really kind of think. I mean, for the first, probably...
I'm going to say this right now. You're sitting, and it's been on the show notes for you to think about for the past 2 days.
I know.
Just saying.
So, I'm just trying to break it down to a little bit of detail.
I'm giving you shit.
I know. So, for me, starting with Odin, again, it made sense. It was cool. The stories I was reading, that's really what drew me towards him. Having that connection with him, and then just kind of, as I learned more and more and more, I wasn't trying to really focus on any other gods or anything. But as I, started to recall the stories better, as I started to learn more stories, where I kind of started to form my own opinions after reading different variations of the stories, depending on what translation I could find, what was available, what format it was being presented in.
I guess let me refocus the question a little bit better. How was it praying to a new god for the first time? Because it was just exclusively Odin for like a couple of years, right? It wasn't just like a month or two. It was like a good chunk of time. Yeah. Because I know for me, it was like, all right, well, today we'll try this one. Tomorrow it's going to be a general. I actually was a little bit more like once or twice a week, kind of, until I was getting a little more comfortable, because I felt a little awkward, right? But each time it would be like, well, pray to Thor this time, pray to Hel, or occasionally I would be like, oh, we'll do Odin this time, and we'll do Odin again tomorrow or next time. But generally, for the first little bit, it was different for me. How was it for you? It's like, yo, I've been Odin, Odin, Odin for 2 years now. What's up, Freya?
Well, I mean, to be in all honesty, it wasn't too awkward. In like, I mean, it was awkward in the sense that it was still awkward. Like, it's your first time doing anything; it's going to be awkward. But in terms of what I wanted to say and what I was praying to them for, it it was having developed and learned so much about them by the time that I did finally pray to them that it was my thoughts and my purpose behind praying to them was very concise. So it was like I knew that I needed to pray for Thor for this particular
Okay,
reason.
but
And so
I
it wasn't like awkward outside of the sense of like, okay, well, hey Thor, it's kind of the first time I'm kind of relying on you here, buddy. It's a little weird for me, but this is what I'm asking. This is what I'm thanking you for. Because honestly, the first couple times I prayed to Thor, I was praying to him to give thanks to him. I wasn't praying to him to ask him for anything. I was literally like, "Hey, thank you for making sure that I haven't been a dumb teenager and
Yeah,
a
that's
dumb young
definitely
adult." And
understandable.
um,
Because I know for like I know I said I was kind of a little all over the place, which what I was, but for instance with my hell one, I when I went to pray for her the first time, I was like, hey, um, it it's a bit of a story. You go. I already put it up on my Hell UPG sharing. If you guys want to hear it, go ahead and listen to that. But just the TLDR, it's a common known thing, or at least somewhat known, or somewhat common. It seems that a lot of Alzheimer's patients, which my grandma's was, at the very end of their life, will get like a little quote unquote last hurrah. Uh, my grandma experienced that. Um, I unfortunately didn't get to experience it with her, but the rest of my family did. It's a very happy moment for them, and I was giving thanks for my family being able to have that moment. So it was very like, even though I had never had an experience with her, I had never prayed to her at all. It was huge intent behind it. Like I saw that as a gift to my family, like for my grandma to be able to call my dad his actual name for the first time in like a year, the day before she died, right? That there was some intent behind it. So like when I prayed for that the very first time, like there was zero hesitation, awkwardness, feeling goofy or anything like that. And then like that night I had a UPG behind her or with her too. So I'm like, right. But a lot of the other gods to me, it's just been like, thanks Sif for keeping my house nice and cozy. I felt kind of a little awkward at first. Again, coming from an atheistic background. And so you did have a Christian dad that you were able to talk to it about, but I know I literally had a Christian friend that I had to message about like, yo, I feel silly praying. Does this ever go away? Or like, how do you deal with this and all that? But it was interesting. He helped me through that.
I mean, honestly, I never. I mean, I have since talked to my dad about you know things because he is interested in learning a bit more and understanding some, but very open, very you know not like, oh, you need to listen to the Bible, Christian. Um, he's very open to it. I think a lot of it too, like what changed his mind though, is his though his wife is Christian as well. She's 100% Chinese. Um, so she has like they have a completely different culture, and like not only do they have Christianity over there, but they also kind of blend in like the whole ancestors and like just part of their ingrained in as part of their culture.
Just their culture, yeah.
Um, so he's kind of been opened up that there's a little bit more than just the way Christianity works. But when it came to praying, I kind of was just on my own about it. Again, being a solo practitioner for, I mean, up until now, basically, where I'm kind of involving my family, and I'm teaching my son and teaching my family, different practices. Grant, we're starting small. We're not doing any big like bloats or anything. It's all just. I mean, I would
Oh,
love to do a bloat, but
speaking of which, I had the most awesome. This is the first time ever it's happened to me. I had someone come up to me and be like, "Yo, do you celebrate Yule?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I do." That was so cool. I was there because I'm at work, right? I'm just sweeping, right? No, I'm not a janitor or anything. I was actually like, it was a pretty slow day, so I was like, hey, I'm gonna go a little above and beyond to impress the boss, and I was like sweeping behind machines and shit like that. Uh, and someone, yeah, comes up and they're like, hey, I'm like, hey. And I've never met this person before. I'd seen him in passing, right? Because it's just I've been at my job long enough, and he has to. And he's just like, you celebrate Yule? I'm like, yeah, I do. He's like, oh, cool. My family's Celtic pagan. And I'm like, oh, that's dope. Yeah, it was really cool. I'm sorry, that's completely tangent. I just totally got reminded of that when I don't even remember how I got reminded of it. It was really cool, and I got have I mentioned I'm ADHD.
It works. Sorry, my son decided to yell in the background right there. Yeah, I mean, not to side tangent us any further, but like as of this recording, it is the 12th. So I'm actually doing, at least here, as a way to like kind of explain things, and because it'll be like the kind of the first holiday, like the wife agreed that I could explain the purpose behind things, and we could kind of do the holiday. So kind of as a lead up to Christmas, I decided that we're gonna do the full 12-day Yule thing, as some people do it, and we're starting it tomorrow.
Hmm?
Um, so every day we'll be doing a little thing, and I'll be kind of building on it to explain things and show things. So it's probably not going to be like the true proper way to do it, but I'm easing the family into it, so baby steps.
I'm
Um,
probably just personally gonna do 3 days.
that's what
The
I've heard a lot
24th,
of people do.
25th, 26th.
Yeah. But I'm kind of in a way, because of the kids, I'm gonna try and kind of theme it as like, you know, because essentially it is like the 12 days of Christmas thing too. So, or at least that's kind of what the 12 days of Christmas is based on of. So that's kind of the way I'm gonna go about it, is just doing a little thing here and there, not giving them a gift every day, but there'll be like little things and stuff like that. In fact, little man's hovering behind my computer right now, staring at me with his new hat because he's a weirdo. But um, yeah. So
Realistically, he's doing that because we've been recording for an hour,
yeah,
and we
that's
are
exactly what it is.
tangenting.
We
We
are
are
tangenting,
going
and he is
we are
actually
going places, and none of them. Not oh my god, we are going places, and none of them are where our show notes are saying we should be.
right.
So why don't we say some goodbyes here, bud?
Yes, that is probably a good idea, because I do need to get him to bed before too long here.
Yes, sir. So,
All right.
thank you for joining us on Two Pagans in a Pod, where we discuss our hearth cults, where we started, where we're at, where we're going. Ooh. Fuck, I dropped my e-cigarette. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.